Because who knows what I'm here to do? It's like
Fair
diabolical.
enough.
Really.
Yeah. All right.
Whenever we get together, it's crazy.
All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Divulgence. I'm super excited today. We have a returning guest who is a content creator, nanotech engineer. He's the king pimp of Tartaria. Everybody, help me welcome Andreas Xirtus. Hey, brother, how are you?
Hey, everybody. Oh, I'm fantastic. I survived COVID again. It's like the second time.
Yeah, we've been chatting here and there. You said you weren't feeling so good and you got the vid.
Yeah, so 2019, I had like the Party Zero was in Connecticut, and I was at this place where there's all these people coming back and forth. So I had COVID before we knew it was COVID, and all of a sudden people were talking about it, like, can you get this and everything? And I was pretty sure like I had it, and then there was like articles about Party Zero, and I was like, oh great, my friends. But now this last time, we had this event at the, with the Timcast, and Tim Pool had a bunch of people come, and we were all fine. And then we got accused of being a super spreader, but we weren't. No one got sick. It was the next time, or a couple days later.
A few weeks ago?
Yeah, it was like a couple months ago. It was pretty cool, and it was beautiful. Lots of wonderful people got together, like veterans and comedians and all sorts of stuff. But then like a guy who didn't want to go to the thing because he didn't want to get sick, got sick at home in like some other place, brought it to the house, and then we all got sick at the house. And it was like horrible, this Delta variant, and we were losing our tastes and smells, and it was exhausting. It was like a heroin overdose or withdrawal or something with AIDS. Everyone was just exhausted all the time. But Joe Rogan, who's friends with Tim, sent us treatment. So we got mononicotinamide, NAD plus with monoclonal antibodies in vitamin water in IVs. And it just pumped into us at the house and we were fine, in like 12 hours. It was interesting. So they have like a nurse person, and you do like it's like the same thing you do at a hospital or anything else. You get a banana bag, and then they just IV drip into your arm, and you cycle through. And the idea is to give yourself enough vitamin B. It increases your apoptosis and your white blood cell count. And there's a number of other things that are happening with the vitamins too. And the monoclonal antibodies will help you produce your own antibodies. So anyone can take it all the time and should. And a lot of rich people apparently are doing this at like $1,000 a treatment or something. But you can turn this into you can make this more available. It doesn't really need to cost as much as it does. There's just so many factors to the professionality of having someone do this and everything. But consider when you're going to the hospital and your family, if you have like some family members who are in the hospital for some treatments, like recommend NAD plus, mononicotinamide, and monoclonal antibodies, because that's the best thing I've seen. And it's really like other people I've mentioned it to have had told their doctors for their parents, and it's saved lives. So it's something I think is really important. But yeah, so I was fine after that, and you can hear me now. I'm like back on.
Yeah, you sound
like
great,
I'm more alive. Yeah, I'm like more alive than I've been in a while. So there's reason why we should try to look for like the more. I mean, I want to call it almost a more natural cure. I mean, granted, it's still other things, but like in terms of adenovirals that are like manipulating and changing our DNA, there's just so much more that's going on there and so you're seeing something that's like last year's design of a vaccine or flu shot. Let's just start calling it a flu shot again. Last year's flu shot is 11% effective for the 8th or 9th variation. So it's an out of trend thing with new fads coming, and it's just not working, on a fun. And I'm starting to notice more and more people are admitting, okay, this is what's going on. It's something that I think everyone knew a couple of years ago and forgot about, which was flu shots were making viruses evolve faster. So we're not out of the loop by doing that. And Omicron is also this symbol for infinity. I mean, it can be. And so, or the beginning of a new like loop, right? So we're starting to look at this like booster, replacing the boomer generation as the booster generation. Okay, boosters. And they're going to continue to get these subscription plans to life, which is the medical, people, especially like Bill Gates has been involved with the AIDS crisis in Africa, a subscription plan to life. Because a month to month change in your vaccine, booster is a subscription plan to life. So, these are things that I've been noticing a lot. It's been tripping me out. But yeah, I'm alive.
That's good, man. I'm happy you're feeling better.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, so also we were going to talk a bit about Disney stuff. I thought like maybe, that'd be probably worthwhile bringing up. So I'm looking into like Disney a lot. I have a series on my channel about DuckTales. I've got a number of videos about Disney, about how he was a Rosicrucian. He's interested in mythology, Egyptian mythology specifically, and like, Hindu mythology. And there's been a number of shows that have shown like Disney like created this mythology around it where Donald Duck was Horus and Goofy's Seth. There's chaos and order, and it's things you don't really think about a lot. You're like, wow, Disney is, clearly deeper than it lets off. It's not just like simple kids cartoons, but there's more to the story. And trying to find a mouse god's hard. You can find Pluto, there's like Pluto is this death cult thing, and they replace the first cartoon with Pluto. There's a Capricorn goat that dies from a nicotine overdose when he eats a tobacco brick, and then Pluto turns tartan plaid, and he comes out looking like the Pepe Frog, and he's got so much. That's the renaissance of the symbol, and Neptune and Pluto switch. But where's this mouse god? And you're looking around, you find a cat god, you find there's not. The Romans kind of liked rats and mice, like they have, they were eating them, but they're really a bad omen for the most part, right? Like they're the symbol of plagues. So there's Serapis and there's Mot. Mot's the Sumerian god or Semitic god, of death, and so death is associated often with the rats and the mice. But there's another more positive symbolism there. Of course, the Sumerian symbolism has all this negative, this is the birth comes of life after death comes. So there's like a reset associated with the Great Awakening. But also the Hindus have Lord Krancha, and Lord Krancha was this demon musician who was able to Pied Piper kind of stuff, get kids to come through walls and everything. And he was a giant, and he was turned into a giant rat, like Splinter or something, like the ninja.
What's his name? Lord what?
Lord Krancha, like Krauncha, and in Sanskrit, so ka-a-ra, uncha, there's a Sanskrit's great because you can just basically figure anything out because it's all phonemes and symbols etymologically that build up on top of each other. But so Ganesh, the pink elephant god, rides around on this rat. So it's this, and you think about Dumbo and the pink elephants on parade, and how there's this soldier-looking marching soldier mouse in Dumbo who he shows, there you go. There he's just being pulled by the mouse, the rat. And so the Vahana, what do they call it? The Mukti Mahana. There's a name for this specific kind of Vahana. But yeah, there's a lot of symbolism there of the pink elephant with Ganesh too. So Disney's gone as far as to have a pink elephant parade, and the symbols that Disney has always used with this mouse aren't necessarily evil. But yeah, the Nandi, right? Lord Shiva's Vahanas. This is the thing. Chaos and destruction don't necessarily order out of chaos. So Walt Disney originally, before he had the mouse, was into the rabbit. And so Oswald the rabbit was stolen from him in New York, and on a train ride across the country with Love Iwerks, the mouse emerged as a symbol, regardless of if it was found on the train or he, evoked the thought in the medium. But there's this sort of plague of rats and mice was starting to build up inside of him, and he was thinking more and more about how this mouse was going to be his vehicle. And so Walt Disney had focused on this symbolism when he created this Rosicrucian series of cartoons that led to Fantasia. And Fantasia has a number of other Egyptian symbolisms.
Dude, Fantasia is fuck. We should watch some Fantasia sometime, brother. That's what we should do.
And if you think about it, it's beautiful and interesting, but at the very end, you've got the crocodiles and the hippopotami and the ostriches. These are clearly these are African Egyptian mystical, symbols that you'd see if you went to the Rosicrucian temple in Santa Clara. So they basically decided at one point they were going to deviate away from Disney's original plans of symbolism. And when Disney died, you can see now Disney's not Walt Disney, right? Yeah, they're the hippo, which the goddess mother, like the most violent protector, is the hippo, and the crocodile that swims in the Nile. Which there's so many death cults. Sorry.
There's sorry to cut. I didn't realize there was a second one.
Oh yeah, Fantasia 2000 is pretty interesting because there's some things that they were originally Disney wanted to have Fantasia every year, and he was going to take some parts out and put some parts in. It was just going to slowly evolve into a collage.
Interesting.
But it wasn't that popular because it was too intellectual. People weren't into it. So in 2000, they found a bunch of pieces. They were rekindling old ideas. They digitally did a lot of stuff. There was a cartoon that Salvador Dali did with Disney that never got finished called Destinio, and they finished it the Destiny cartoon and put it at the beginning of Fantasia 2000. So it's amazing, and you can see the digital aspects of it, but it's this crazy Salvador Dali painting that you're going through. And the stories in Fantasia 2000 centering around the Metropolitan and Noah's Ark with Donald Duck using the Graduation Symphony. The Fantasia 2000 was, well deeper than people realize. But then they created a show recently which wasn't available for anyone to watch, except if you had Philippines iTunes. I guess no one was able to see the show up until Disney Plus now has put it out for people. But for years, it was like 5 years, the Three Caballeros, the legend of the Three Caballeros. And that's Donald Duck and his couple friends, and they go off on this adventure, and they have a band, and they're these birds, and they go to all of these ruins around the world of these Titans, and they find the Titans, and they awaken the Titans at Easter Island. And the cartoon has them being chased by a matador through a checkered labyrinth into a Freemasonic hall. The thing, Three Caballeros, is like the craziest cartoon ever. And the characters even are interesting, because originally Disney had made a cartoon during World War II where he took everyone out down to South America. And there's all sorts of conspiracies about what happened with Disney and the CIA and FBI and OSS before the CIA in South America. And yeah, so Walt Disney is definitely the bearer of the reset. And there's a reason why the mouse has been removed so much from symbolism, for a couple of reasons. One, the mouse is about to come into public domain unless Disney is able to extend the copyright again, which they were able to do before, but it's kind of plausible that they won't be able to do it. So if that happens, then all of a sudden the mouse goes into public domain. And already, China has abused the mouse symbolism, and you can see what's happened in China with like great growth, like the rabbit, but then eventually like chaos after the plagues. So I kind of foresee a rekindling or a renaissance of the Mickey Mouse. The other thing is the Mickey, right? So Walt Disney lived in Chicago, and he'd gone across the country. Mickey was the name of, what was his name? Hold on. I have this for this reason. Mickey Finn. Mickey Finn was the bartender at the Lone Star in Chicago. And so there's LL Holmes and Mickey Finn. Holmes was a serial killer who used to kill people in the World's Fair, and he would like bring them places. And then Mickey Finn would slip people a Mickey, or rather, he probably didn't do it so much. Maybe he let it to happen, but the bar was known for drugging people, or people being drugged at the bar. So slipping a Mickey, right? And so Mickey's this surreptitious thing, which, oh yeah, the cartoon, of course, of Mickey as the sorcerer, which is the first cartoon to have him have pupils in his eyes. He meets Yensid, the wizard. Yensid's Disney backwards. And it's based on this ancient Turkish tale, one of the oldest tales in the world. So there's so much to the idea of rekindling symbolism. But what happens in the Three Caballeros is they find the gods have all become very old, and they're dying. And the gods are not quite dead, but they're the gods are dead, kind of a Nietzschean thing. And now there's this new girl, a young goddess named Cassandra. And so the Three Caballeros, which is horsemen, instead of the four horsemen, you have the Three Caballeros and the goddess Cassandra. Cassandra's the goddess who could have the gift of prophecy, but no one could understand her prophecies. Like, she couldn't be understood when she explained what the future was coming, even though she knew what it was. She couldn't express it. It's the worst kind of blessing and curse. So there's a lot going on with Disney right now in terms of symbolism. I thought that was pretty decent.
Yeah, man. No, there's so much shady shit connected to Disney, like any freaking way you want to look at it, whether it be the occult symbolism, whether it be the freaking sex symbolism.
Right. Well, I like to differentiate old Disney and new Disney too, because Disney was young, at a time, and I think what we're looking at now is this corporation that's using his name. And so, ask about the Illuminati and the DuckTales. When you look at Eisner and Iger and the people that have changed Disney, they're not the same, as their goals and agendas are different. Things have become so much more evil. Now, I'm not saying Disney wasn't into the occult. Like, I clearly think Disney was very into the occult, but I don't think that in the stories we hear about Disney, I'm not convinced that he was this evil lecher that we think he was. I think what happened was the CIA which was being fabricated out of the OSS in the United States. The OSS was the Overseas Strategic Service, was looking into the Nazis and the Soviets and everything like that. They eventually took power, and he had invested his time into fighting communism because he didn't like unionization ruining animation, costing him so much money he couldn't make. You look at how things are lost today. Like cartoons suck today. Like the amount of effort that's allowed to go into something and the amount of hundreds of millions of dollars required to do even the most menial things, very little is getting done because of that, except for in countries where they're able to suppress it through, you know, like in East Asia, they have some sweatshop that's making something. But Walt Disney was building this thing and giving, you know, these people opportunities, but he was hiding their names. And they were a lot of people that were trying to unionize to get more propriety rights to the animations. Disney didn't like that. He reported their names to the FBI, and he got himself tied into the communist conspiracy in the United States. So it ended up being that the CIA used him. They were wiring all of his buildings. They were go deep in and trying to connect, like, who is this guy? Why does he have so much power now? And they were placing him up in a lot of ways because they were able to manipulate him. But he was more clever than a lot of people think. He was investing quietly without people knowing it. He bought all this land in Arizona, in Florida, using other people's names. And so then eventually he he just had two halves of half of one county and half of another county. It was essentially its own province. And that's when they were like, we have to stop this guy. And at this point, Disney's already got the Mickey Mouse Club, which the CIA are turning into the MK Ultra recruiting grounds because he's old, he's being removed. And he's now announced he's going to build Disney World. 2 months later, he dies of, you know, some smoking related things, supposedly like some lung cancer. And everyone says he's frozen. There's a lot of, you know, evidence he's actually buried in Missouri, frozen in Missouri, next to a train track where his old town growing up used to be. But he now owns that whole area is owned. But under a secret name, under Wed Enterprises and through a separate company, because he's even at that point afraid of what's going on in his own company. After that, Disney World doesn't even happen for 20 years. And when it does, it becomes this weird, you know, I mean, it's essentially its own Epstein palace. There's so many weird stories about Disney World and Mickey Mouse Club and what they're doing to the kids. But all that stuff becomes way more brutal. I mean, there are stories about, I forget the name of the kid from Peter Pan who Disney did know. And there's a lot of stories that like he had some weird relationship with this boy. I'm not just counting the plausibility because that guy ended up dead, buried in a mass grave, the kid from the Peter Pan, like because he was doing drugs in New York and was just like lost and homeless. So there's a lot of stories of kids that were destroyed even during Disney's era, but it doesn't seem like the same thing. What we see afterwards is this has been created to be this ethical thing, so we're going to use it as a Trojan horse in everyone's homes. And then they start, I mean, all the cartoons that people see today, again, like Tangled, or, you know, which is about the Corona, right? I think is the name of the kingdom or something like that.
Is it? Yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah. Disney's got all this crazy symbolism, the Tinkerbell cartoons and everything else. But we're not talking then about Fantasia or Snow White or any of the things that Disney originally worked on, which are, you know, those are the things that we should be thinking of when we say, well, who was Walt Disney? To an extent, more than like what about Tangled and Toy Story. So the new Disney is clearly this, you know, evil thing. I think we can all agree. But what was Walt Disney's original goal? I think he was trying to show us chaos and order and bring back an American mythology that was based in the ancient mythologies. And he did a really good job, you know, evoking that symbolism. But anything under Eisner is sexualized. Agreed. Like the 80s to 90s Disney is pretty brutal. Not saying I don't love it. There's still some stuff there that's fun.
Yeah, there's some wild stuff, eh?
How about Banksy? Did you hear my thing with Banksy and Prince William and Prince Harry?
No. What's up with that?
I wonder if the Canadians will get this one more, because like I've been saying this for years, and at first I was kind of kidding. Like I was like,
the artist Banksy the artist.
Yeah, I was like, this would be ridiculous, right? Like, okay, so 2009, I'm in Oakland, and Banksy's in Oakland. This is when exit through the gift shops being filmed, I guess, because like there's a scene with the Vulcan like warehouse where I used to live, where like you can see my jacket in the building. So at some point, it must have been while I was living there. Banksy's there, and then Prince William, yeah. Prince William, no, was it Prince Harry? I think it's Prince Harry is coming through Oakland. And it's like, wouldn't that be weird? You know, that they're connected. For some reason, my head's like, wouldn't it be funny if that was what his cover is? Oh, yeah, haha. But then as time went on, I think it was like a week or a month later, couldn't have been that much longer. At Montclair magazine had this article that was Prince William was at the Queen Mother's birthday. And at the Queen Mother's birthday, Prince William said, you know, a lot of people don't realize that I'm an artist or I'm interested in art. Actually, I'm Banksy. And it was just like, what? Like, and right after I thought of it, so it's like, that's a little weird that he would say that. And it was like, this is, you know, a great joke showing that he has this joke. But, you know, started to think about it a bit. It's like, whom could do the things Banksy can do? Who can make art in Chernobyl, right? Or can sneak a Guantanamo Bay body into Disneyland, or all of these things connecting it. And then you think about like Shakespeare, right? And Shakespeare was, you know, like an actor paid by the elite, Sir Francis Bacon or Vere, you know, Vere the Earl, who is, you know, Edward de Vere was the 17th Earl of Oxford and was related to the Queen and wasn't allowed to write things. So often the elite, who the Puritans wouldn't let do art, and also who could get in trouble for saying things, social commentary could get you in trouble, would have, you know, not just a cast, but cast a crew member as well, cast the writer. So an actor playing a writer. But most people would say that Shakespeare, the actor, couldn't even read, you know, so like he couldn't write or anything besides the symbol is a signature he was taught to do, because he was just a local 16th century bum. This is the same kind of story. If Banksy is not just this man of the people, then why is does it make more sense that Banksy is an established propagandist of the elite? Not necessarily that it's the only way it can go, though. As time went on, seeing more and more evidence, and also learning more about the, you know, Prince Harry and Prince William, they seem kind of in their own angst. Their mother has been murdered, right? So yeah, and starts putting up this art everywhere. Yeah, you start finding like there you go. You're gonna start seeing like this is not. There's a few people who have started to notice this, but it just seems so outlandish that these kids from England who grew up with money could be into modern art, I guess. I don't know what the deal is. This is the one. So British DJ, not the one, but one of the ones that's interesting. DJ Goldie has several times been accused of being Banksy. And I think that's, you know, you see the connection with the royals. There's something there, you know, like, especially because Banksy's associated with several Persian elite, which, you know, Princess Diana was dating a Shah Iranian. If Harry and William are both Banksy, it makes the most sense, because they're like, hey, try and stop us. And they probably have Secret Service that have to protect them at all times. Of course they do. So these guards are able to anonymize what's happening, or they're able to commission this stuff to happen and pay people off to make sure it happens through. But yeah, I mean, this I think is probably one of the most under talked about theories on Banksy there is.
Interesting. That's crazy. That's an interesting one. I've never heard that, man.
You've seen like Elon Musk talking similarly about becoming a social influencer and just quitting all of his jobs, which is an elite thing to do, right? The elite believe you shouldn't work with your hands. So kind of makes sense to an extent. But also capitalism is devolving into influencing, right? So if you're just able to influence people, isn't that management in and of itself?
Wow. This is all shit just to fuel the flames of ridiculousness.
This is true. Well, there's a couple of things Disney did also that, you know, right before he died, he made the Gnome Mobile, which is a movie kind of for Bohemian Grove, and then also released to the public about leprechauns gnomes living in the redwood trees. And there's a lot of talk around this future past like in the future, you know, in a lot of sci-fi, the future just sort of happens and it's one place. Like you get to the future and time travel makes time irrelevant. So we're living in this sort of insectoid, like hive mind singularity thing where like all choices are available. But if this exists, then in order to influence the past, but make sure the past happens, so no one goes back to the past and erases it, there have to be people underground or some sort of hive underground. Leprechauns and gnomes fit these stories. And so a lot of these stories about these, and when you look at like underground characters, they make them really cute in the movies, but they tend to be like, they have hooves and horns and they're like kind of demon like characters. Sure. or sort of like hybrid humans. And they're small, but they're also like, they have power, they have technology, they're able to do, they give you 3 wishes because they can augment reality. So this idea of there being these magical or scientifically powerful super beings that live underground, that are above space and time, that are influencing the decision. This is what Shakespeare or Bacon was talking about with Puck in Twelfth Night, that there are a number of magical hybrid interdimensional characters that are interacting with us, not necessarily from outer space, but that outer space could be right here. There's been a recent thing that was saying that there's an access point to Mars underneath Trump's Mar-a-Lago. And
really?
There's been people talk. Yeah, it's a fun one recently. So all of these ideas of space jumps or hyper portals that are the stargates, right? There was an article that Obama said that he went to Mars when he was, which is kind of interesting. Like a number of people have talked about this total recall 20 and back program where they're going to the future, and when they're done, they retire into the past, and that there are multiple stacks of realities, so that underneath us is Mars and above us is Venus, and that we're living inside of like this hyper electric universe. It's a holographic Michael Talbot universe. That could be a part of why, when we're interacting with these beings, that they have to stay underground, so this is another, the underground realm concept. Now they're talking about, this is pretty good. Well, so Mars in the 80s, the CIA had all these remote viewing programs and, all these other programs for stargates. So things were coming out that were like, wait a second, how much of the elite is involved in this? How many of the celebrity characters that have retired into being public characters were part of this? And Obama's like name came up, the Chrononaut, right? An elder Chrononaut, because this idea that they're traveling through space-time and that they're able to exist in multiple dimensions, because afterwards you're retired to be young again in the past. So you live in right now, this could be my retirement. I could have already lived till 2076. And now I finished my mission, and then I just go back and I get to live an innocuous life that's relaxed, right? This is this is one of the, beam me up, Obama.
Jesus, so much ridiculousness. Wow. I had Addy Ad. I don't know if you know who he is, but I had Addy Ad on the show today. He's currently in New York covering the Ghislaine Maxwell trial.
Yeah.
He was at Epstein's old Manhattan place today as well. The famous one that, you would mostly see when the whole Epstein thing was going on. And it's some interesting stuff. So he thinks,
sorry,
go
ahead. I was gonna say, where's my big-titted Mossad goth mom? I need, who doesn't want a Ghislaine Maxwell to manage their affairs for them? But what's he got to say? Sorry.
No, like you just cut to the meat and potatoes, so to speak. What's with those tits, man?
Dude, I mean, like, Ghislaine Maxwell's pretty rad. I don't know.
Those tits came out of nowhere. We were talking about the tits for a while, I must say.
I mean, I don't know. Like, when I've seen a lot of, I got way too many pictures of Ghislaine Maxwell, I guess, in my life.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of them over the years. I mean, like when all the stuff started coming out on 4chan and, we're doxing everything, a lot of those pictures are her in bikinis, enjoying her life. And that was what she did. Like, she threw parties. I have a whole series on Maxwell's, both Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell. Her dad was a Labor Party exploiter who took a bunch of money, disappeared, and died off the coast of his boat, just naked in the sea, which is, how things happen to people, right? But his daughter had these huge parties all the time and was known for being this like epic Patrick Bateman, American Psycho-esque, socialite who was, exciting and fun, and had sex with a lot of people. Like, okay, so this is also what we have puritanical values. Americans are weird because like their age, I don't know, is Canada 16? Because America's 18, but it's not 18 anywhere else.
Here too.
Okay. Well, like it's 14 in France, and that just happened. So a lot of the world's not caught up on this idea. I'm not saying that we should make infantophilia or pedophilia or ebophilia, although we need to have gradients. We should start to, also notice people are selling themselves, and this big pyramid scheme, which is entrapping people. That's the whole world now. You've got Instagram, you have TikTok, you have OnlyFans. Everyone is a clown or a prostitute. That is what vaudeville has done. The cyber vaudeville has done to us all. And, I think Maxwell, her husband, did he talk to you about the husband they found recently? She's married to a guy who has kids, who's been kind of anonymous. Yeah, there's a whole new husband that's been anonymized, has been kept secret.
Really?
Yeah. And they're trying to keep. Also, did they talk about Terramar's project at all? Because the biggest thing with her was she wanted to do this like ocean cleanup because she wanted corporations to be able to go to non-state places and build super cities underwater, which is already happening and no one talks about. Switzerland has these volcanic mining submarine volcano companies that they go and they build, and you can find on Google Maps in the middle of the ocean these like dots, and it's just this freaking pole that goes straight down like an oil pipe, and it's going into these underground places. Terramar was UN sanctioned, and so many. I mean, I think that's where she met the guy. Yeah, they're her husband. She met this guy through this project, who's like 12 years younger than, big deal, but and has kids. So I mean, look into your Mossad handler routine. It seems like it's pretty plausible he's involved.
PhD in international relations. He likes them international titties.
Well, I bet you some Doge that she's gonna walk, right? Like they obscured all the testimony. They hid the black book. All the names will be secret. This is, and we knew this probably when Biden went into office, because we've been saying this for like years. It was like, if nothing changes, this will continue, and now it looks like this will continue on a bigger international scale, where it's kind of been. Human trafficking has been regulated into, it's like marijuana. It's like it's regulated now, but it exists. I mean, and the UN talks about the Geneva Convention and how you can't own slaves, but really, like, aren't they talking about individuals and corporations who are individuals owning slaves? Because they're not saying that banks can't take loans for states, and states still have the legitimate source of violence. So within the realm of regulation of the social contract, everyone's sort of a slave, if you will, to a state. So states are just kind of creating an anti-competition clause against corporate slavery, right? They're saying only we, the state, can really own somebody, and you can lease them. And so that's become more and more people are willing to sell themselves for less and less and less. With social contracts, we thought we'd get more. Everyone was like, wow, we'll get freedom of speech, and then we'll get freedom of thought, but no, it's going the other way around. We're losing things. And yeah, I think Maxwell is kind of indicative of like the elite that's losing, because she's the trapezoid. There's the elite, and then there's the trapezoid. And the order of the trapezoid, let's see if I can do this again. The trapezoid, right? This is where it's an altar that people fall off. They don't quite get to the top. And so many people that are part of these elite families that are not going to make it to be part of the 500 million, right? The 500 million that are supposed to be allowed to live in harmony according to the Georgia Guidestones on Earth. They're upset, they're arguing with each other about this as well. That's going to lead to them struggling to serve more. I think that's what Maxwell found herself in. Her dad had been murdered. She found a con artist who was really well placed and was able to, with her well placement, get more and more power over people. So even on just an individual level, that's even more scary if he's not Mossad, because it's, people, they're saying, hey, this guy's not us. How come he gets to do this? Only we get to do this, right? This is nothing new for the CIA or the Mossad or for a KGB or the KPV. People will continue to spy on, the Chinese government have cars in the United States that are spying on Chinese American citizens, right? And in Canada, like there are neighborhoods where they're just being monitored. This is not going to stop. So the question becomes, what can we do as individuals to maintain our sovereignty? But that's, how much longer do we have before Neuralink just starts stacking with generative personalities, and we have, graphene in our blood that is radio controlled to reuptake drugs for the workers at Amazon warehouse factory that we become. Like, there's not a lot of room anymore, so we have to be very careful.
Geez, I've never heard of this Order of the Trapezoid.
Yeah. Okay. So, Michael Aquino, who died like couple months ago, anyway, it was last year. I don't know. He was friends with, Anton LaVey, started the Church of Satan, but then he didn't want to do the Church of Satan because that was like too monstery. He didn't want the Addams Family vibe. So they said, let's do the Temple of Set. Temple of Set's really nice. It's Egyptian mythology. We'll be focusing, instead of good and evil, on chaos and order, right? And from there, further down the line, Order of the Trapezoid, which is, the administrative class of, Anton LaVey originally, but he stepped out when he died. Xena, his daughter, left the Church of Satan and changed her name, married this guy Shrek. I have a video called Shrekinism, or is the Temple of Shrek. It's about Satanism, Smash Mouth, and Shrek. If you look on my channel, and Smash Mouth's association with the Order of the Trapezoid. A lot of musicians are associated with Satanism, the Church of Satan, but there were offshoots, and some of these offshoots are not as innocuous as the Church of Satan is pretty innocuous. It's a lot of people that didn't like getting bullied, and they've kind of said there is no God. Like, they're breaking all of the rules one at a time, but they're also saying we follow all the laws, we follow all the rules. Being a vegetarian, don't hurt people, blah blah blah. But if someone's in your lair, they have to follow your rules. There's a whole other line to it. So eventually, you have the disembodiment of Jesus and Satan from Satanism, which is where Shrek comes in, because and this is why the cartoon Shrek is called Shrek, because it means shriek, which has to do with fright, and why children associate fright. So moving away from Satanism, Xena Shrek, she decided, wow, this guy, and this is also why Donkey is Charles Manson, because her husband Shrek was interviewing. He was the most famous Charles Manson interviewer. It has a number of episodes all about, and all of his wild antics, which is what Donkey represents. Often he's saying the same kinds of things, but it disembodies the original occult symbolism and allows you to create new symbolism.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
Brutal, eh?
Yeah. Who knew? Addy was talking, just to get back to the Maxwell trial real quick again. He thinks that it's going to get wrapped up pretty quick, maybe before Christmas, even most likely before the new year. And yeah, he did mention that it is a very, very possible that she could walk. I mean, the implications and consequences behind that will be pretty wild, but I mean, of course it's a possibility, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's like. It doesn't mean, for me, like, vengeance isn't very valuable. So
right,
I'm not really like, oh man, stone her to death. But at the same time, it's indicative of the other problem, which is that we're moving away from cleaning house. I'm not saying that. I mean, this is a dangerous line of thinking, because to be jealous of the Iranian Revolution or the Puritan burning of London in 1666 and all of these horrible things, really, where civilization cleans house, that's not necessarily something that we should be envying or wanting. But then we're stuck with the same thing all the time. So accelerationism, people give it a lot of, they don't like it, but that's the thing I think a lot of people loved about America for the last few years before things went back to the way they were, was the K order. Like, chaos was burning things down and new orders were emerging. It was super obvious so much was falling apart and it needed to be replaced. I think we're trying to tape or put a Band-Aid on a leaky pipe, at this point, and things will burst and explode, So we'll see how it goes, but I'm pretty scared with America in general. I mean, but because of how America with Biden is associated with the international allies, and I'm very scared of the status quo at this point. Looking at Alex Soros, he was just in Austria, and within a week you had PSYOP of police arresting people at H&M, asking them for their vaccine papers, papers for IDs. So the beginning stages of setting tone for Europe and the EU, while Russia is trying to build this sort of like dynamic opposition, we're setting up for a furthered totalitarian state that will include the United States as a state in the union. I mean, we're breaking, and this is what I see also with BLM. And I have to be clear, Bureau of Land Management, because there's an agency called Bureau of Land Management, which is really, Bureau of Land Management matters, right? They are doing things like 52% of Kansas has become part of their, anywhere where it's a reservation that has a casino, it's like above the Constitution. It's Napoleonic dictatorship law. So you have a chieftain that can make and permit what happens. And you can see the difference when you go into a reservation, because a lot of time, all of the social services run down, and then there's a few elite, and then everyone else lives in trailers. So we're moving towards this division of the United States to make it more convenient to have an American trade union and fold that into a United Nations. That was not what was going on 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago when Trump was president. And you can see there's a lot of people that are worried about that. I don't think we're going to, I mean, on one hand, America's inflation rates and people are freaking out. But on the other hand, they're so good at displacing it with the social services and with ubiquitous internet technology. Removing jobs is being, you can compensate with automation and not pay the machines. So they're getting to a point where we're not realizing how much they're taking. If they just keep raising prices 5 cents a day, it's incremental enough, it's Fabian enough that we don't notice it as the steps emerge.
Yeah, it's scary, man. And I mean, you're scared for America. And I mean, I think Canada, for the most part, falls in line with the States for a lot of the things that go on, right? So I hear you.
Well, for the longest point, we've been setting the tone up until Trump. And then all of a sudden, they're like, hey, why aren't we able to use this country as so now we're following you guys, because for the last 4 years, Canada and Britain have been continuing and we actually held still for a while. It's really weird to see, it's like, wow, 4 years ago, freedom was so much stronger. It didn't seem like it was strong because 20 years before that, freedom was even more amazing. But at least it's like, wow, look at the paradigm difference between the sovereign states. And then there was New York and California and these other states that were still, you could see the United States was not whole. And there was a lot of, dynamic between the old status quo, which is now back in power, but they are so in line with the rest of the world. We're now following, any of the quarantine mandates and the rules that came up out of Canada. I've heard some of your stories and some of my friends that they're, it's like Gestapo. Like you have to tell people when you go from one town to another in Canada. And that's pretty weird. I can't believe that that's happened, but I'm afraid that that's coming here.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I hate that. I hate that kind of crap. I feel like I'm the kind of person I feel it. I feel the strings and I feel the control they have, and I don't like it. It's not right. It's not right at all.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine what we're supposed to even. I mean, at this point, I think part of it though is that a lot of it is psyop. I don't think everyone's being arrested in Austria right now. It's like too complicated to do that. But it's easy to put a video. It's easy to put a video out about it. Just show it happening once. And so we're giving people more and more, because a lot of people are just at home. Like, oh man, I got to do, like, everyone's talking about this law in Austria and Germany that they're going to start arresting people that haven't got their vaccine by February. And then they're going to fine them. If they're going to give them information to get it, and they don't have it, they're going to fine them if they keep doing it. And then people are arguing about it. But even in the courthouses and in the parliaments and in they're all worried about this thing that hasn't been submitted to become a bill yet. So much of this is we're building up fear mongering about, what if this happened or what if that happened, and we're still not, actually experiencing it. And on an optimistic level, so many people are tired of it. So many people want out that they're having a hard time pushing us any faster than they're pushing us. So hopefully we can use that to our advantage and people can start to wake up and start to make their own decisions for themselves. But it's going to take a lot. It's going to take people being willing to be ostracized, humiliated, and embarrassed on a mass scale. And if everyone can recognize that that's happening to us all already, then we can probably unify.
I hope so, man. I really do. Like, try to recruit and keep people as smart as we can. You know, we do what we can, and we talk to our friends, and we do these interviews and these shows, and we make this content, and you know, we do our best, and hopefully when the time comes, we can link together, and we can be strong, right?
What do you think is like an ideal future then? Like, so if we were to, successfully, like, so basically all the old people that were part of the old conspiracy are dying out. George Soros is old,
Well, fuck yeah, man. Look at him. He's like, yeah, he's dust. He's like the mummy.
Alex Soros is your and my age, so we're going to be part of this solution. And if, we're saying they a lot or whatever, who are we? Like, what are we going to do about it? Like, what are this, like, where should freedom be? What is a good, utopian vision that should come out of this? What do you think?
I think, if there is going to be a big change in force and power and understanding of what's going on here in the world, then shifting towards more obviously responsibility and transparency is huge. And I think it's an opportunity for the world to, maybe learn a lesson from this and link together as a planet, so to speak. Maybe end out some of these wars, give our head a shake about how we treat other people, how we treat other countries. Unfortunately, religion is a huge issue with that, right? Religion starts wars. It has people hating other people. It has people not trusting other people.
Theoretically, communism is actually an ideology as a general. Might have killed more people than religion in the last 100 years than religion's ever killed. But then malaria is probably worse than that. I think ideology, though, is religion's kind of an ideology. So like ways of thinking are probably our biggest weapon.
Sure.
Against each other.
Yeah. I mean, they're using fear to change our behavior and elicit emotions. So
it's crazy because it seems like they want to push people in the metaverse so bad, and it wouldn't be so hard to make a world that we could coexist in, we've done so much change already. That's the other thing. It's almost like, why don't we stop changing things? Well, at a certain point, you have to recognize that, we've cut down all these forests. Yeah. There's just, and like, so that means an entire microclimate and biome is, or hundreds of biomes are gone. We've concreted over places and built these cities, which are not gardens or jungles. And if there are plants in the concrete jungle, they're male trees that can't bear fruit, right? Okay. So there's all these things that we have to acknowledge we did. If we start to look at it, we can undo a lot of those things, and we can probably start to, but we have to also be careful about feedback loops. Like, say you make the Sahara green, what's that going to do to the rest of the world? There was a lake in Russia that they diverted 10% from, and it dried out over decades because feedback loops, right? So we need to start using simulation softwares and things to see what are the plausible ways things will go. But I came up with a word earlier today, technoarchy, which is like techno, nous, archy, and you don't pronounce the S. And it's the idea that instead of a democracy, which tries to be a neuarchy and never is, Plato talked about this, philosopher king future where you have intelligent, informed, consensus-taking, logic-driven governance by philosopher kings, right? Instead, you have a democracy. None of it's like that at all. We always think it is, but it's never that. You have a random mob that are ill-informed, not universally informed, and never informed, accurately in any respect. And if there are, there's a few, but it's very seldom. There's so many that are displaced, and they're not necessarily logic driven. They're emotional, and they're driven by propaganda and whatever kinds of things. So democracy is a really dangerous weapon that we use to destroy Iraq. It's not a tool for governance, as far as I can tell. There's some things where you want to include people's opinions and you want to value them, but you also have to be aware the costs, and you shouldn't necessarily, it's kind of like when people say don't look at the comments when you make videos.
Sure.
You have to be really careful. But humans are corrupt. So philosopher kings that are made of technology are more likely to work than humans, the way that we naturally exist. And we're talking about, also Havelock talked about how humans through Greek mythology were able to uplift and start thinking in these paradoxical philosophical concepts, if AI starts to help us with a new Lacanian language, we might be able to uplift again. And if that happens, and humans could be, beyond transhumanist, is post-humanist, whatever this new thing, doesn't have to be evil, doesn't have to be a singularity, could be a new kind of thing, which is human plus. And there's a benefit to that to be found. I mean, I'm not saying, be careful. There's track records here. You don't trust these people who have been saying they're going to help you, haven't helped you, and now they're saying they're going to change you. But the technology, this is the worst part of it, exists now to make techno-Gaianism, which is this idea of nature, changed to benefit the world. And it's not just humans, it can be ecocentric. I was coming up another, I've heard this a couple times, X-centric, not eccentric, X-centric. So centric of outside, and starting to kind of look at the world in a milieu, and you're saying, okay, we can get rid of these systems that we're building that are using energy and oil and killing people, and instead use the wind, because the wind will carry gliders, this current, and we'll have things following nature's currents, and then that will deposit fruit seeds, which have been, or whatever, like we can start to actually incorporate into nature. And one day we'll wake up into a world where there are giant cherries the size of watermelon growing naturally through a system, and it doesn't have to be evil, and people could all exist happily. It's scary that that's not happening, and it's kind of worrying that we're so afraid of each other, so distrusting of each other, that we can't make that happen, because it's so plausible. Like, all the technologies are, the only thing holding us back is ourselves. But at the end of the day, the thing that we're seeing more and more is starvation, removal of these systems. It doesn't look like we're headed towards, sustainability of the population. We're talking about feeding people bugs and getting them onto the metaverse, and eventually they're going to be wearing helmets and not seeing the world around them. I mean, isn't that kind of the opposite?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's the picture that average Joe and Susie Ann there don't look at. They just don't. If they have a job, they go to work, or they go to school, or whatever, and maybe they flip through a few articles on Facebook, and maybe they have their hour of news every night, and they think they're informed. And yeah, they're sheep, right? And that's one of the biggest hurdles, unfortunately, which I've talked about so many times on the show with everyone almost. And I'm sure we'll talk about it many times coming in the new year. I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot. So
I went to a bar and I saw this lady, who was this old lady, and she's there, and we were, it was Minnesota. And I think I hope I didn't already tell you this one, but it was that she was, innocent, and I don't want to call her sheep, but like, she wasn't interested in a lot of these crazy thoughts all the time. She's trying to live her life.
Sure.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, I was just talking to criminologists who come through Timcast and is involved with Elon Musk's Neuralink and all these crazy things that are happening that are about criminology, that I was like, I'm going to ask her the same kind about the things that we're talking about now that are not science fiction, that are just completely being pondered for liturgical and literary, usage. They're like, we could put this into helping people, and we don't have to punish people if we help them, like Neuralink. And so I asked her, what do you think about this? Because they're saying Neuralink will be used for criminals first, as much as possible. You'll be able to turn off the crime, and you'll be able to install new personalities that really like cleaning up on the highway, and things like that. And it was like, and if someone's a life sentence, then it's a new life. You give them a better life. And if someone's got 6 years, well, then there's 6 years of being a benefit to society. And then after that, they can go back to being the horrible person they are. And it's just the stress of this thought on this poor lady was so much that she's like, well, I can't remember what she said. It was just so obvious. Like, I don't want to think about that, or I don't think about things like that, or like, I can't think about things like that because it will destroy me. I mean, this is what most people have said to, it's not going to happen, or it can't happen yet. That's all gone now. It's happening now. It is happening, and it's happening now. So, start to expect it to be harder to ignore, like when your kid comes home with a Neuralink, like there's no way to avoid it. You have to start to, like even if you don't do it, everyone it's like it's coming. And so much of it is already like being taught to us through vaccine mandates. We're getting ready for this idea of reuptake boosters that will adenoviruses don't have to just be for flu shots. They could be recreational. You could have someone extend your telomere length. You live longer and you're younger. Or I wanted to make blue hair vaccines when I was young in college. I thought that would be hilarious and fun. We could, if you're going to live for you want to stay young forever, that's great. But if you're going to do it, stay the way you want, look like, have blue hair. So much of that's going to start to emerge in places that we're going to have to start to acknowledge the changes that are coming. For one thing, if you were in a classroom and you were quiet for the most part, how much of those memories had to be you and not just stacked, right? So much of your education could be stacked with generative Blade Runner, Philip K. Dick, electric sheep dreams in between the hallways to make logical sense of how you have this education. But so much of it can just be input into your mind. So we're going to start to see people that are extrapersonal and intrapersonal as we start to become more and more utilitarian. And also humans will start to become less human, right? We'll have people that have no feelings.
Absolutely.
So they can, travel through space or whatever, be space truckers. But you'll also have tools that people will rent a person so they can jump into that person's body in another country,
Sure. Space truckers. I love it. Space trucker.
Yeah, right. Bring it back to its most real level. Always.
That's awesome. That's cool, man. Well, I know you got to get going.
I was about to say I got to actually jump off because I have to go to the airport right now. But
yeah, bro,
it's awesome that you made time for this.
No, yeah, thanks. I'm glad we did, and now we can focus on the new year, getting together, and we can pick up where we left off with Tartaria. Ever since we spoke, I'll have to show you. I mean, I showed you a few things already, but I mean, I've been buying some Tartaria shit. I got one book.
Nice.
You know what? I'll show you it real quick because I'm curious if you've ever seen it or read it or heard about it because it's good.
Yeah, I know you pulled up one that you were showing me like a week ago. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, not that one. That one was a novel. But
oh yeah, that one. I love that one. That's the coffee table Tartaria book. That was great. I got that.
This is good. You can get it in color or black and white, and I mean, it's got like it's worth it getting it in color because it has so much.
It's beautiful.
So many graphics, star forts, like freaking cathedrals. Flags, the world fairs, all that shit, man. Like I was super excited when I found
it's actually really comprehensive. It's really good.
Yeah, I just really got it. It's brand new to me, so I'm super excited to look into that. So over the holidays, I'll do some research and then we can come back and we can do a Tartaria episode.
Totally. I'm sorry I didn't get deeper into Christmas stuff. If your audience, go to the Xirtus.com, go to the YouTube Xirtus. I have 3 Xirtus Christmas specials.
Oh, sweet.
You got Die Hard as a Christmas movie and Sol Invictus and It's a Wonderful Life and a number of other things that are all looking into the mythological roots of what has become Christmas now, which, people keep saying it's arbitrary, but is it arbitrary if we've had the solstice celebration of Saturnalia for thousands of years? I mean, clearly it is what it is, So yeah, enjoy that. And, thanks for having me as always.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for coming on. I'm not sure what you celebrate, but have a happy holiday. Enjoy your Christmas and your holiday, whatever it is. And congrats on everything that you did this year, man. And I wish you nothing but the best in 2022.
Yeah, as well as you. Merry Christmas, happy Sol Invictus, happy solstice, happy Saturnalia, happy New Year's, happy Kwanzaa. Be happy.
Beautiful, yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. Be happy. All right, brother. So be happy and be well, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Yeah, cool, man. Peace.
Cool. Peace.